And good evening. Welcome to another edition of the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Along with Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Coming up, we got a pair of special guests at 6:20 this evening. Our coach guest for this week, the head boys basketball coach at Wausau West High School, Nate Lemmens. The Warriors 8-3 so far, 2-1 in the Wisconsin Valley Conference, getting set for a couple of big conference games against crosstown rivals in the next week. On Friday night, taking on DC Everest, and then next Tuesday against Wausau East. So we'll talk about that and a whole bunch more with Nate Lemmens coming up at 6:20. And then coming up at 7 o'clock, it's our student-athlete guest, three-sport athlete, not only a three-sport athlete, but a three-sport athlete who's been all-conference in all these sports from Mosinee High School, Keagan Jirsch. And also a young man that just signed a national letter or announced where he's going to go to college. So it's good timing. Completely unintentional on my part, I will say to start things off, about Keagan Jirsch coming up at 7 o'clock. Jeff Gress, again, now past the holidays. And it really is, it's a different feeling now. It's a lot of focus on conference games, and also it's not that long until you get to the seedings and then the playoffs. I mean, once you get to the turn of the year, things really start to heat up, don't they?
Yeah, it's a total... I don't know. It's another change of pace for the season. I think, right now, if I'm a coach, trying to get the rust out coming back off of Christmas break, even if we had games or we only practiced or whatever we did in the time being over the holidays, and you get into the thick of things with these conference races, and before you bat an eye, you're through those battles and the playoffs are starting. So a lot's going to happen here real fast.
Let's talk about the boys. Let's start with the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Just to set where the teams are, you got Marshfield and Spash, 3-0 in the conference. Marshfield 10-1. Stevens Point undefeated, 11 wins and no losses so far this season. Then you have Wausau West at 2-1 in the conference, 8-3 overall. DC Everest and Wausau East are 1-2 in the conference. Everest 4-7 overall. East is 9-2. Then Merrill and Wisconsin Rapids 0-2 in the conference. Blue Jays 4-5 overall, and the Lincoln Red Raiders are 2-8. And I'm going to do a little. I liked the way we did it last week. I'll hit on some of the games myself, but I wanted to just get your impressions maybe on either the standings or some of the action we saw in the past week.
Well, and I kind of like. Right now, I like the conference battles that are coming up. I know we're going to get into the games here, but that jockeying for position, I think, is a lot of fun when these teams have only, they're only one game away from each other, which is really what the middle of the pack of that conference is. And it's a lot of our local teams, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. I think, you got some huge records up at the front with Marshfield and Spat. You got a lot of teams almost tottering on the first four teams in that conference are tottering on close to 10 wins, and the other two have already hit that mark. So a lot of wins in the column being halfway through the season where you've won almost half your games, which is neat to see out of the Valley teams there. So I think for Marshfield to sit on top of that conference right now is a good a good trophy head for them on some of the stuff they did, and beating Ashwaubenon and winning at Rhinelander last night, some good games, and they get the conference bye, and coming out of the conference bye they jump to Spash, and then Spash is sitting at 11-0, won 2 games in the Century Classic on the college floor, so I think that's great, and West and East. Coming and jump. West being dormant will be a different look. We talked about that off air, and you said they had a lot of games early on. And then for East, went over and played in the Stratford tournament, went 2-0 over there. So I think it's neat the playoff or the playoff they have between these top 4 teams right now in terms of their overall record, where they're all tottering on those double-digit win categories is kind of cool in the Valley.
Marshfield had a big week. They went down to the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook event and got a win over Onalaska, 51-43, and then Ashwaubenon 58-45 Thursday and Friday. As you said, last night they really took it to Rhinelander 70-34. We're within shouting distance of the first meeting between Marshfield and Stevens Point. You mentioned Spash with their wins, 73-60 over Oshkosh West, 67-55 against Fort Atkinson. It looks like both those teams are rolling into form for what's going to be a massive game coming up on Tuesday.
Yeah, they're playing just by the presence of the scores. You're getting W's, and sometimes you're knocking off other teams that we have comparable results to, like for Marshfield with the Rhinelander win. That's a significant win over a basketball team that gives pretty good competition to area teams they play around here. And for again for Spash, after talking about they had a transfer, the kid back from injury, they seem to be hitting full stride. And that'll again get into one of those games next Tuesday where you can create some separation for teams and start taking ownership of the conference.
We talked a little bit about Everest last Wednesday. They played Appleton North, who's undefeated, ranked number 2 in the state in Division I right now. They fell 73-55, had 3 kids in double digits that game, Cade Felch, Sam Dassault, and Colin Preby. And then last night beating Shawano 76-42. When you look at the overall record for Everest, not great, but still the big win they got in the conference against East, it's still a team I think to keep an eye on.
Right. I think, looking at the records and checking the things that were down in the statistical category, how they're finishing out in the conference right now, I think you make a good point. Everest's record doesn't look like they're where they want to be, but seeing them play one time and seeing some of the scores that they've had happen already, they're going to be a team that you can never overlook. They're going to be a formidable conference foe whenever they have to turn around and play. And again, for conference wise, you got West at 2-1, East at 1-2, DC Everest 1-2, and all these teams are going to start playing each other. So again, they're going to be able to jockey it around. I think Everest is a little bit of a shadowy figure in the sense that they play some tough competition, and some of those losses have come to some very good teams. So I don't think their record's an exact indicator of where they stand when they show up and play other teams.
You did see East in those 2 games, correct? In the Stratford tournament, what jumped out as they got the wins and they got that tournament championship.
Well, I think against East is this is in my opinion of what I've watched. Their biggest thing is that they've got a lot of they got a lot of good balance between their seniors and their juniors. They've got different guys that have different roles that they've created for themselves in the team. It balances well. In Stratford, they were down a chunk of the game and had to come back and fight through that one. They had some foul trouble. Stratford was in the bonus. Stratford took a lot of free throws right away, and sometimes that's not easy to do against a team in the other gym when they're rolling from the foul line and you're playing from behind. And the game's being called tight, and players, getting a little frustrated with some of those fouls. And it's hard to fight through some of that. And East did that against Stratford, so that was good to see. I think East is balanced with what they have, and I think obviously they can put the points that they've shown in the numbers that they have. But they had against Stratford, they played from behind and came back and pulled that one out at the end, which was a good win to roll into your conference season on. And against Lakeland, they came out and owned that game throughout like they should have.
What about Merrill? They lost to Monona Grove. I saw Monona Grove earlier this year against West. It's a talented team, but a 43-point loss on Wednesday, and then on Thursday fell to Columbus 61-46. Obviously, again, these are not conference games. You go out of the area to challenge yourself, but at the same time, you got a little work to do as a coach, don't you, after you have a bit of a rough bus ride home, isn't it?
Yeah, I think you can look at it 2 ways. You want to see how you bounce back. So I obviously can't say I know how they played. I only got a score to reflect on versus Columbus. I know Columbus was a good basketball team last year when they played Newman. And I think that, the Monona Grove one is one you probably check the tape a little bit, see if for a couple improvements into the next game and move on, unless you're looking at the stat sheet and seeing that, we missed too many free throws or we didn't hit the boards well enough. So one you probably want to move on from pretty quick with the discrepancy in the score. But again, they are challenging themselves. So I think win or lose, those games are only going to make you better. They get tested right away in a big way when they bounce back against Spash in their first conference game since the Christmas break. So you're going to kind of see where they play out. I know, again, Coach Pieper's not going to let his kids be unprepared for that game. He's going to have them ready to go and fired up and know that you want the chance to – those are the opportunities you have in your conference rivals is to go out and steal one and get one that on paper you might not should have. Who doesn't want to give Spash their first loss of the season? So that's what I'd be, plastering all over the locker room and firing the kids up with.
Great Northern Conference. Yeah, Lakeland undefeated 4-0 in the conference, but only 5-4 overall. Mosinee has done it both inside and outside of conference. They're 3-0 in the league, 9-1 overall. Rhinelander 3-0 in the conference, 6-4 overall. Then you had Medford 1-2 in the conference, Pines 1-3. Tomahawk and Antigo still looking for their first wins. Looking at what Mosinee did, they went to that tournament over in Green Bay. They beat Preble Thursday, 84-63. Keagan Jirsch, 29 points, 7 boards, 5 assists. Landon Tomer, 17 points. And then Friday, 87-82 win for Mosinee over Southern Door. Jirsch, 35 points. Tomer, 21 points, 14 boards. Garrett Shoup, 12 and 10. And Southern Door had a kid that scored 45 points in that game, so it was quite the big scoring nights. But Mosinee, I mean, they got 6 kids that are within about 0.2 of a point from all being averaging in double digits this year. I mean, you don't see that very often at the high school level in this area, do you?
No, that's a lot of production, and it's hard to defend. One of my first years coaching, we played Kenosha St. Joe's, and they platooned, and 7 out of the 10 kids had scored double. We couldn't defend it. It was impossible. So I think when you got that many scores coming at you and that balanced attack, it's tough to defend because the points are probably coming inside and out. At some given night, somebody's going off. Somebody can pick somebody up. So that's a lot of points that are being claimed and being put out there by that team, and it shows. You know that when you can play a team and the other kid has 40. Most likely that team probably won the game because that's a lot of points. And they both scored up, and, Mosinee almost had 90 points and they gave up 82. And so a lot of point production out of that. So for Mosinee, again, 9-1 overall, 3-0 in the conference. I think, just looking to get your feet wet again with some of these conference teams, but a lot of production and playing very well. And you talked about the balance of what they have for scoring. That makes a big difference.
Another thing about that conference, I mean, you got Lakeland and Rhinelander both undefeated in the conference, but losing some non-conference games. Are those teams maybe a little bit more of a mirage than, say, Mosinee is at this point? Because you look at what happened to Rhinelander last night. They're playing, again, Valley teams, quite a few Valley teams. But Rhinelander and Lakeland look to be maybe still a step behind Mosinee.
Yeah, I mean, if you take Rhinelander, just because based on what you've seen out of the scores, you take Rhinelander, for example. I think East beat them by 20-plus in the beginning of the year. Marshfield just beat them by over that. So they're lagging a little bit, where if you looked at Mosinee on paper, they'd be able to compete a little bit better with these Valley teams, if not knock some of them off. So you see that challenge out of Mosinee, and I think they're going to rise to the top of that conference. And again, taking the comparison where East handled Lakeland, so I think that if I had to put on paper and judge from what I'm seeing out of Mosinee, they'd be more competitive with playing some of the Valley teams non-conference. So I think they're going to be a front runner for that conference and take over that lead when they do get their shots at Lakeland and Rhinelander.
Marywood South continues to be very strong. You got Auburndale 6-0 in the conference, 9-1 overall. Marathon 5-0 in the conference, 10-0 overall. Stratford 4-2 in the conference, 7-3 overall. Edgar 3-2, 7-2. Assumption 2-3, 4-6. Newman Catholic 0-5, 1-8. Again, I'll open it up because I know that you were watching some overtimes for Auburndale on Friday night. They continue to look impressive. I saw Marathon last night. Started with a 7-0 deficit, but then, boy, they just played exceptionally well. General thoughts and maybe some of the action that you've noticed in the last week.
Yeah, well, you got that. You got these games coming up when the Auburndale Marathon game. People are just waiting to see. You got one at 5-0 in the conference and one at 6-0 in the conference, waiting to see somebody's going to come out of there with that loss if they don't stub their toe on another team. And I got to say, I texted Coach Weinfurter right after the game. I don't even think he was off the floor, but I wanted to, you never know. Sometimes those guys respond right away because their phones are in their pocket, but I wanted to give him a hard time because I'm sitting there watching one of the best games, I've seen a 4 overtime game. The one of the Neelsville players at 3 seconds left in the 4th overtime, they're down 2. He takes a 3 and he drills it, and it looks like Auburndale's done. Auburndale comes down, gets an inbounds play, gets a look off, and the kid drills it with 1 second left and wins the game 80-78. It was one of the coolest, best finishes that I've seen out of a basketball game, a 4 overtime game. So to Auburndale's credit, they made it for the duration. I watched Marathon a little bit because over the Christmas break because they streamed them down at the yearbook tournament, and just balance. The ball moves well. You got different weapons out there. You got guys looking to make the extra pass. Down the stretch, they're going to be tough. They won the close one against Prairie School and had a nice double-digit win against Kettle Moraine Lutheran. So I just and last night bounced back against Colby. So I think you're going to see them just sticking around the top, them being the team to catch in that conference. But you'll see Auburndale's playing a little bit better than they may look on paper at times, and just another formidable opponent in there. And then you got Stratford and Edgar's teams that you can't overlook in that conference, because they'll come try to take one. Just as all these conferences are, teams are wailing on each other, and it's competitive area.
Marathon just moved the ball so well last night. I mean, Colby came out through a zone, and the first possession took a minute for Marathon. They didn't score. They fell behind 7-0. It took a little while for them to get a feel, but they made the extra pass, and then they made the shots. It was not just Grant Warren. He had 26, 17, 6 assists. It felt like he had more. I thought he was close to a triple-double. But you had Underwood, 17, Andrew Glennon at 12 on all three-pointers. When they make those extra passes and then you make the shots, it turned into a 50-point second half. I mean, it was so impressive, I thought, the way that they took a little time to get into the rhythm, and once they did, they were a machine last night.
Well, and I think it's just this is again just watching the highlights off the news. You can already see, if you're looking for the right thing, you can see the spacing. They got extra spacing in there. They got guys in the short corner. They're catching the ball and squaring up and looking around. It's what you want to see out of your team as a coach is unselfish play, extra pass, and a conversion. And after that, you can't. You could probably, if you really want to find something to whine about, you probably can. But they're doing a good job when that happens, and it shows in the ball movement that Marathon has and the productivity they have out of those individual players.
What about Stratford? I know that that's an interesting team, because when we talked to Coach Schmidt a couple of weeks ago, it felt like they needed the time. They needed the action. They needed to get into the rhythm of the season. And I know you know him very well. And when you look at the record, it's still pretty good. But it feels like they're not quite there yet. But it feels like that could be a team that's sort of below Auburndale and Marathon right now that can still cause some troubles.
Yeah, I think they can sneak up on anybody easily. And one of the things that Coach Schmidt, prides himself on is we're going to play defense. We're going to get physical, see what the refs will give us. We're going to move you around on the court as we want to dictate. And, so you see that type of play. I think, like, their struggles when I watched them against East was more so where's our scoring going to come from, because kids struggled to sometimes put it in the basket when it was a necessary conversion that they had, and they converted a lot from the foul line. So I think he gets a lot out of his players. I think they're always a team that's hanging around there, and I think it's indicated by the record. They're going to give you good competitive games. And I think the only one, maybe that Auburndale one, surprised us. I think that was it. Otherwise, in discrepancy of scores, they've been in every game.
Bearwood North, Rib Lake 3-2, 7-2, Phillips 2-2, 5-2, Athens 2-3 in the league, 4-5, Prentice 2-3, Abbey 1-4, Chequamegon 0-4. Athens looks like a team that still, I think, has a potential. They had a 85-55 win over Luck Thursday, but then lost to McDonald, who's always pretty solid, 55-50. Rib Lake, again, I'd like to talk about them a little, because that gym is such a unique place to go do a game. And
you've coached your play. You hate
I know,
it's too small.
I tell you, I feel like even if you're broadcasting at the top of the bleachers, you hit your head on the ceiling, because it's so low. Bearwood North, I mean, you've obviously coached in the Merriwood a long time. Anything jump out?
No, I mean, it's a little bit different, because now that since I've not in the time I haven't been coaching, they've switched that where all those conference games now count as record-wise.
Mm-hmm.
You can't stub your toe on any given night. So you see that the South is a little stronger this year, and that's why Rib Lake is the only team right now with the winning record in that conference at the top. But everything I've heard from some of those coaches that I've talked to is that's the team to beat. I haven't seen them play.
And one of those losses is against Marathon, so they got them out of the way. I mean, sometimes you look at it that way too.
Right, exactly.
That conference.
And it seems like they're looking at their scores. They're balanced. They're winning games. They're being consistent. They're 7-2 overall. Obviously, they've played in that gym long enough, and that's their gym, and they can use that to their advantage. But I think they have a notch up on some of the scores, because I've seen Athens play Newman, and I thought Athens did a good job that night when I watched them play. But Rib Lake, I think, beat them up the first time they played them. So, see how some of these games come, whether home court advantage makes any difference as they come around the second time in the conference. But I think Rib Lake has an advantage right now in that conference to take it.
And finally, CWC East got Bondwell, only undefeated, 4-0, 9-1 overall. Whitburn and Shiocton, both 3-1 in the conference. Whitburn 5-4, Shiocton 4-5 overall. Then Iola, Scandinavia, and Wywiga, Fremont 2-2. Amherst and Manawa 1-3. Menominee, Indian 0-4. I guess final moments of this segment. Big win for Whitburn last night. Beat Amherst in overtime. I saw Amherst last week against Newman Catholic. Looked like a solid basketball team, but still for Whitburn a must-win to get 3-1 in the conference.
Yeah, as in anything, is to stay consistent, especially when you bounce back in those conference games right after break. You hope that your players have the rust off, but sometimes you truly don't know until you get playing into that game. I watched the Newman Amherst game also, and I thought Amherst had a balanced attack. They could they shot the ball extremely well right out of the gates from the 3-point line. So from looking at them as a quality opponent, it's a nice win for Wittenberg. And as coaching a program and players, it's always nice to get those hard-fought ones in OT. They're exhausting when the time's on the sidelines, but when you're done and you can say, yeah, we gutted it out, I think it just makes your team that much better as you go down the stretch.
Should have opened up the mic. Let Nate Lemmens become an analyst here. When Gress ends his retirement, I'm going to need somebody here.
You're throwing too many things, what ifs out there. We're living through today, right, Coach? Just get through the day.
We're going to take a break, have our first guest of the evening, our coach guest for this week. Wausau West, 8-3 overall, 2-1 in the WVC. Couple of significant games coming up in the Wisconsin Valley. So we'll talk about what's happened, what's going to happen with the West Warriors with head coach Nate Lemmens coming up next here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
For more than 60 years, Sun Printing has been Central Wisconsin's commercial printer of choice due to their commitment to quality, creative solutions, and dedicated service. Sun Printing's team offers you a wide spectrum of services, whether you need vehicle graphics, offset, digital, large format, graphic design, or mailing. They print everything under the sun. No project is too big or too small, so give Sun Printing a call at 845-4911 or visit them online at sunprinting.com.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
Winter sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rib Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rib Mountain today.
Are you an enthusiastic sports fan? Want to have fun and get in on the action?
Heck, yes. That'd be awesome.
Have great attention to detail? Want to stay active?
Definitely.
Want to give back to the student athletes in your community?
Obviously, yes.
Then you'd make an excellent high school sports official. We need more officials in Wisconsin, because with no high school officials, there are no high school sports. Sign up today at highschoolofficials.com.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Online at bullfallsradio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes, and joining us now is our coach guest for this week, head coach of the Wausau West Warriors on the boys' side, Nate Lemmens. And Coach, nice vacation here. It's been a couple of weeks since you played a game. You go off, go to a beach, and
well, I didn't have to go anywhere. The warm weather's here.
That's right. But thanks for coming on over.
Yeah, thanks.
I guess to start things off, 8 wins and 3 losses overall, 2-1 in the conference. It felt as though, to me, in terms of, I've seen quite a few of the games. You started off with the Turkey Shoot Championship, and then you had a couple of non-conference losses. At that point, I think it was still hard to put your arms around where you were. But then that game at Monona Grove, and it started a nice run here, a number of road games. We saw how good Monona Grove is, the way they beat Merrill last week. Was that Monona Grove game maybe a spark to winning 6 of the last 7 games and be able to find something for those guys to kind of grab hold to?
Well, I think honestly, I think the losses were too because we've changed things up offensively and defensively, really a lot defensively. So we talked about how we didn't want fool's gold. We wanted to know where we were at, and so a team like Eau Claire North and a team especially like Appleton North was going to expose us and really allow us to break down and look at what we were still struggling with. It's kind of a new thing for me. It was a new thing for our players, and so those losses helped us. The Eau Claire North game was just a battle. It was a really intense game, and we had to handle some adversity. And so how we rebounded from those and the perspective we kept from those games, I think really helped us. And then obviously you go on the road, and we've been on the road all December
Right.
and played a challenging schedule. So just that grind, I think, has really helped us. And I've seen our team improve in some of the areas that we've looked at and say, okay, these are some adjustments we have to make. So they've had a really good month, and we've just competed at a really high level. So I think those losses helped us because they allow you to see where you have to continue to get better, especially when we were throwing a lot of new things at our guys. And even our JV levels have played well in Monona Grove, and we went down there and took 2 out of 3. And so it's been a good test for our guys and how they've responded, and just the learning curve and how you've seen each game. I feel like we've just looked more comfortable, more fluid, just more comfortable in our decisions and where we've got to be in our instincts. We've talked a lot about our instincts and just playing with instinct.
Is it hard? I've been there. You get settled with what you like. You've done this long enough. You feel confident in the decisions that you make for your team. Is it hard to take that leap of faith, so to speak, and jump into a new set? Because I think we were talking at the turkey shoot, and you're like, yeah, we're putting some new things and we're trying it. Obviously, you sound very pleased with it, and the results are happening with how the players are doing and things. I guess from your perspective, hard to take that leap of faith, but to pay off and make those changes.
Yeah, we've defensively is really where we've changed tremendously. Just in, I guess you could call it a small change, but in a philosophical way. Just we've been a pack line for 10 years. Where we're just saying no baseline, and we're just trying to pack the middle and keep teams from penetrating. And we switched to the old school Dick Bennett push, where we're just keeping the ball and trying to keep the ball on one side. And I think as I reflected on my 10 years and now this being year 11, we just looked at our team and kind of our program down the line and thought we've been really close and we've been really competitive. But we just felt like there was something, we were getting worn down, we were getting broken down, and we looked at kind of where we think we can make some changes. And I felt like, maybe imposing our will a little bit on the defensive end a little bit more. We were more of that bend, don't break. And we've turned into kind of, can we force it? Can we kind of turn the tide and make teams kind of go where we want them to go? And so that's what the decision was. And obviously, when you win games, it looks like it was the right decision
Right.
as far as this team, and I think it does fit this team with our size and our athleticism. We're not big, but we have kids that are aggressive and can move laterally. So for this team, it fits. But I've liked it. It's been fun, kind of dabbling with it. I've picked some coaches' brains that do it really well. So I think every year you just look at your personnel and try to change, but it's a change too where we've kind of implemented it down the line of just we want to be more of an aggressive defense where we're trying to push the tempo, where we're trying to impose our will on the other team instead of just laying back and not breaking. I felt like that was causing us to maybe come up short a little bit or wear down. Teams were wearing us down and we weren't closing games maybe the way I would hope we would.
Piggybacking on that, the last 2 games you closed well. Rhinelander, you scored, I think, the last 8 points of the game, if I'm not mistaken, to pull away. It was a 1-possession game there at the end. And then the game against Rapids, it was a good way to go into this 2-week break, to be down by 3, to get the big 3-pointer by Hager to force OT and then be able to finish the deal there. Is that something that you've noticed, that whether it's this group of guys that don't let those moments get in the way, or the sense of closing out, and those were 2 significant wins to finish off the 2023 part of your schedule?
Yeah, well, I think yeah, you're right, Chad. I think when you look at those games like the Rhinelander game, we were in control of that game, and then they kind of made some shots and came back, and it was a 1-point game, and we forced a turnover. We stayed aggressive. We stayed in passing lanes, and I think it was Griffin that ran the passing lane and got the steal. And I think Brett was hounding the basketball. And so that was one of those instances where in previous years we just stay disciplined and we'd pack it in, and if they made a big shot, then they made a big shot. If they didn't, then we did our job. So yeah, kind of setting the tone. We just kind of played that. I relate it to football maybe. We didn't go in the prevent defense. We just stayed with our package, and we made a play, a game-winning play we call them, and kind of the same thing against Rapids. We made a couple steals and we got the momentum going, and then we hit a couple shots. But you know what? It all looks great when it works.
Yeah, I've said that so many times to you. It's like when the ball goes in the hole, it looks great. When you get the stops and it doesn't go in the hole, you're the guys. Like you can. Basketball is a game where you can execute, but boy, you got to finish, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that was another determining factor for kind of some of the changes we made. Is we felt like we weren't making shots and we weren't finishing around the rim. So how we can sit and go, man, we just got to make shots, we got to finish. But at the same time, what can we do? And so we thought, man, if we get maybe out more in transition, if we can get ourselves some easier shots. And I think you're seeing that with this team. We've by far had the most points in transition or points off turnovers with this team than any team I've coached. But then you play against a really good team, and this defense challenges you because they've got a number of good guards that then they can pick you apart, and if your rotations aren't good. So it's been a fun kind of chess game. And I love the pack line, and I think, there's a lot of teams that play it really well, and I just felt like where we were, we switched, and it was more for personnel reasons and where I see our program being in the next 5, 6, 7 years. To what fits us best.
And how do you? Chad and I debate off, not on the air, but when we talk about like scheduling. You guys had a heavy load of games. Where other teams have just now finished up over break and they're at 11, and you're already at 11 going into break. How do you keep the guys? I mean, the guys might be just naturally hungry. How do you? Because you got a lot of practices and not as much game time if you're not playing in tournaments or anything over. Anything you've done to keep that momentum going and keep that going, right? Especially when you got a couple, you're playing some of the local teams right away in the conferences, games you want to win, games that can create some separate or keep some separation there. So anything you've had to do, or these guys just go, you know what I mean? You got to let them go dormant over the break on you.
Well, we practiced over break a little bit, but honestly, we needed the break. We had guys in the locker room that were sick and puking, and I mean the
fun times.
The bug hit us kind of perfect timing. We had guys sick, and but just from our mental and physical fatigue, the break was really good for us. And I didn't want anything over Christmas because of how busy our December was. And now we've had, I think 6 practices it'll be before we play Everest Friday. So we've had alumni come back, so we've been able to simulate some things. So we've got a competitive group. So I think they've stayed hungry. But yeah, they're still high school kids, and 6, 7 practices in a row is a lot.
Yeah.
Again, we're talking to Nate Lemmens, head basketball coach at Wausau West High School here on Bull Falls Radio. You mentioned your guys. I mean, you've had a really good and you said before the first game that I talked to you that you really like this group and you like being around this group. And they've shown it on the court. I mean, it's not just 1 or 2 or 3. I mean, you've had a lot of guys step up. Let's talk about a few of the guys. I want to start with 2 of them that I've been very impressed with. Brett Butala has been just good, both in football and basketball. The guys has really got a good nose on him. But Bennett Matson has really stepped up this year, hasn't he?
Yeah. Brett's one of those guys that when he was a sophomore and even at times with a junior, it's like, you have to pull him back because he's a competitor. Yep. I mean, he competes and he plays fast. But sometimes it was almost a reckless fast. And he's done such a great job this year of just being a playmaker. We talk about, kids, sometimes it's like, I got to score. And Brett can score, but he also just causes a lot of mismatches and a lot of attention. So his ability to play off of 2 feet and to make the right decision and really be that guy that at the end of the game we just feel comfortable with. And we're fortunate because I think him and Griffin are both kind of assuming that role, but just their ability, the Rapids game, like that play was not drawn up for Brett to shoot it. And so he wants the shot, but he was just willing to make the right play, and in the end, that play was what got us to overtime. So, just his playmaking and his composure has been really good, and his improvement with how many different speeds he's playing at and his body control and things has been really good. And Bennett's, I think been kind of that unsung hero for us, where he's playing probably out of position a little bit because he's got to be our 5-man a lot. But he's tenacious on the glass, and just the amount of extra possessions he gets us defensively. He has to guard the biggest guy usually, and his ability to just rebound against bigger guys and just be so active on the glass. We really don't have to send, 3-4 guys on the glass. Him by himself gets us so many offensive rebounds, and just gets us so many extra possessions, and he's just been fantastic to start the year.
You mentioned Griffin, and that's Griffin Lang. He, to me at least, he comes across as the kind of guy you can almost put him in any kind of situation. If you need a guy that's gonna, be a penetrator, dish kind of guy, if you have a point where you need a guy to carry you for a little bit, I think he's got it in him. It's been fun watching because he came as such a young player. Just watching him, and he's still only a junior. How do you look at him as a coach? Because it just feels like I don't know if I could really pinpoint exactly what he is yet.
I just think he's a really high IQ basketball player. And sometimes I look at him like, dude, if you don't get aggressive here, we're going to have problems. Yeah. And I've had that conversation of, it's like, Griffin, the time is now. Like, you need to be the guy, and you need to piggyback off of Brett. But sometimes he'll get passive and he'll hesitate, but he's so good. He pivots well, and he's so good around the rim with his body control. I think just him being a little more assertive in the fact of not second-guessing or not thinking, oh, should I shoot this, and just playing with more, I don't want to call it confidence because I think he's a confident player, but just more fluidity in his game of just saying this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to go do it because my team expects me to do that. And I think he's done that the last few games. But what a luxury to have a kid like that at times we want to play him at the 5. We want to put him and just say, let's get a middle touch with Griffin and let him play. And he's so smart. He sees the floor so well and has great instincts. So, yeah, it's nice to be listing off several players, but that's why you're 8-3 is because you got guys and we're healthy. I look at when we reflect back and we talked about scheduling, that was one thing that we've talked about is if you could do it all over again, the scheduling piece, and I look at how we've tried to build this program and some of the gap years that we had, I think scheduling is such a big piece of it. And I think we were always that iron sharpens iron, but I think too, when you got a young team or maybe a not so talented team, finding ways to win, finding teams that you can beat. And that's probably one thing that I would change is go back and maybe say, all right, we're going to get 12 wins. No matter what, we're getting 12 wins. Right. And I think this team, we did that same thing. We're gonna challenge this team because we know how competitive they are. So we're gonna go get tested on the road. We're gonna go find some teams, throughout the state. And I think that's really built this team to be a pretty resilient team. And you've seen that resilience now in some of our games where we've had to handle some of that stuff and how they've come through with it.
And Coach, looking at the conference, anybody when you coach and it's your team in that conference, it's always a war. You got to watch the teams on the bottom because they can sneak up and take it. It's a good competitive fight, and you're trying to maybe steal ones from the ones at the top to bring them back down to get the records as close as you can. As you look at this conference play rolling around right away here at a break, and teams are, every game matters because you're within one game of each other and it's tight. What do you see out of the breakdown? Chad and I see on paper and sometimes enough to watch some of these teams, but we don't get the same thing that you guys get through all the game film that you get to break down. What's the conference look like this year? Kind of your overall take on it. I think it's competitive, and I think you got those, all these top, we were talking about these 4 teams at the top all inching on either they've gotten 10 wins or they're really close to that double-digit win mark right now. So that's I think, a good vote for the conference.
Yeah, I think our conference is really good, and I think you're seeing that in, we've gone and played the Fox Valley and some of these other areas and the success that they've had. I think, obviously the Spash teams my first few years were just incredible. and Spash is really good again. They're not that team, but they're really good. But I think from top to bottom and balance-wise, this might be, I think, the most balanced I've seen the conference, where there's just a handful of really good teams where it's like when the game starts, I don't know who's going to win.
Right.
You know, I think there's just any given night, any given team, it's a really well-balanced, really well-coached conference. You know, I think we've got coaches that every night are going to have their teams prepared and really do a good job with their programs. And so it's going to be, I think it's going to be a heck of a battle. I like Point and I like Marshfield. I think they're right now in maybe a little up above the class. But I think that they're both susceptible and can be beat. But man, you better be ready to go every night.
What do you think the ceiling is for your team? Because when you played Stevens Point, I mean, it was one run. It was a night that you didn't shoot as well as you normally do. It feels like that you are there. Yep. Do you feel like this team has that high ceiling this year?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we need a couple kids to continue to grow. You know, Karji, a sophomore for us, I think he gives us another element to where we can maybe take another step up as a team, and he's really done a good job just working hard and continuing to grow. But I think our ability to shoot the ball, like you just said, is going to determine this team's kind of ceiling. When we can shoot the ball well, and more than just Lucas. You know,
right.
when Lucas shoots the ball well, obviously that helps us. But when he's not maybe going 4 for 9 or whatever, other guys that can knock down shots, whether it be Griffin or Brett or Marcus or Bennett. You know, Bennett can shoot threes too. I think that takes us to a different level when we're just not one-dimensional, where we're going to break you down or where we're going to turn you over, but when we can make outside shots, because that spaces us out so much better, and we just have a very balanced team of guys that can attack off the dribble. So when we're shooting it well, I think we go to a different level. And then I think our ability to just continue to guard and rebound, even though most nights we're going to be outsized, and continuing to have that toughness. I've really felt good about our team every night with our toughness and our ability to just kind of control the glass. And that's got to stay that consistent.
You are balanced because all your guys are about the same size. I mean, it is really odd in a set. Not odd, but it's interesting because you do have guys that are, if you put them shoulder to shoulder, you get their starting five out there, they're pretty darn close. You don't have anybody that is one of those really big kids. And how do you coach in that respect? Because it's not like you have one kid that's even like a 6'5" kid that can come in there and just bang around a little bit. Are you able to use that maybe as a bit of an advantage because you have multi-purpose guys out there all the time?
Yeah, and I think that's why defensively we did some of the things we did. We switch a lot of things, and because what's the difference if we switch it? And I think that's allowed us to get run through some passing lanes and cause disruption. How we guard the post is really irrelevant because we're bringing help regardless. Right. So yeah, I think it plays into our favor, but it also makes you susceptible in different things. But I think our guys have done a really good job of playing bigger than what they are, and just having that toughness. If we get outworked and teams are tougher than us, we're going to struggle. We just don't have the luxury of saying, well, we're bigger than you, we're going to reach over the top of you. Right. We have to be the toughest team. We have to play at a really high competitive level. Otherwise, we're not going to play and compete at the level we want to play at.
And Coach, one of the ways, I know everybody's philosophy is one game at a time, right? But just, I don't have to be one game. I'll just look at the numbers here. And,
well, at least not this year.
Yeah, well, as you keep going with that illusion, yeah. But, you've got 2 home games coming up with Everest and East, I believe. And they're, everybody's one game away from each other, so to speak. And then you got Spash and Marshfield who will play each other. I don't know. Do you have those discussions with the players? Do you say, hey, look what we can grasp? Or do we just kind of like, hey, we're just going to go out and play our game. We're going to worry about ourselves and just kind of take control of what we can control in a given night? Because there's different ways of looking at it and what you want to share or not share.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I've ever really talked about anything like, as far as we worry about, a lot of times we talk a little bit about the team, but we're worried about us, what we have to do. Teams are going to do what they have to do against us. We go through a scouting report and a plan, but ultimately we look at we just let's focus on us. Can we play the best basketball game that we're capable of playing, and then make the other team match it? I think when you start looking ahead, or when you start thinking about too much, you get lost in what's really right in front of you. I think all that stuff will kind of take care of itself, and the team that can hone in and play good basketball and know that there's going to be probably a bump in the road, or a game that you're going to have to go and steal, or a game you're going to have to absorb because you didn't play well, so now you got to go get one. Yeah. I think you just take it, the one game at a time, and I tend to not talk too much about really any of that. We just kind of focus on us. I don't talk a lot about the other team. We know what they're going to do. We get our kids prepared, and then we try to focus on what we need to do as a unit to play the best game possible and force the other team to beat us.
And what about Friday? Because Everest has been one of those teams in recent years that's been one of those guidepost games where they've won a lot of conference games in the last couple of years. And maybe their overall record isn't what it was, but East found out you got to show up and you have to play them really well. What about this Everest team? Obviously, Cohen Preby was a kid that was a big factor a year ago with their success, but generally, what are you expecting from Everest on Friday?
Well, yeah, and you never look at a record. I mean, they've played a really good schedule.
Yes, they have.
So they're battle tested. It's not like they're going to come in and see us and be like, wow, you guys are good. We haven't played any good teams. I mean, they're going to be ready. They're well coached. They got kids that can make shots, and that you have to make sure that you account for. It's going to be a great game, and if we don't do what we need to do, we're not going to take care of business. I mean, we have to go and play a really good game and force them to do some things that they're not comfortable with, and make sure that Cohen Preby's not going off, and that Studeman's not controlling the glass, and we're going to have to take care of things. And if we start looking at, they're I don't know what the record is, but if they're this and this, we're going to get our butts kicked. So they're more than ready to play against us. They're more than capable of beating us. We're going to have to go and play a good basketball game and make sure that we're taking care of what we need to take care of, and know that they are more than battle tested of what they need to do. And it'll be a great game. I think you look down the line, all these conference games are going to be a grind, and there's going to be teams that get knocked off by somebody you didn't expect, and we just got to make sure that we stay locked in and control what we need to control.
Anything else, Jeff?
Yeah, last thing. We always talk, as coaches, we always think about the things we got to keep improving and keep working on. What are you happiest with your team so far?
I just think the way that we've played as a unit. I mean, the ball is moving, the unselfishness we've played with, and just how we've stayed together, and just how we've competed in our toughness. We're a talented group, but we're not that talented. I mean, we've got guys that can make plays and things like that, but we're not going to win layup lines. We're not going to walk out there and just say, hey, we're the most athletic team out here, or hey, we got so-and-so and that. We have to continue to be that team. We're a good team. We're a talented team. But the second we think we're going to show up and just say, all right, hey, well, we got this one, it don't work that way, and then we're going to be in trouble if that's it. So I've just loved how they've bought in and played together, and just really competed. It's just a really competitive team. It's a really fun team to coach, and watch play. I mean, they play extremely hard. They're locked in, and then we got to just continue to get consistent with our ability to score the basketball, because I think night in and night out we're going to defend pretty well. So. It's just been a really fun group of guys, just to be around. It's been a really good start to the season.
And I hope folks get out there, because you've been playing a lot of these road games, and now you got some home games coming up. It'll be great to get that field house really packed and for these games. I mean, it's going to be really cool to have these, intercity games, and even the other games against, when Merrill comes. They're always, tough. And then, of course, you still have these other games to go on the road. But really, I think that for folks out there, these games coming up against Everest is always so much fun. And then, of course, East is always so much fun as well. And hopefully we can get a lot of folks at the field houses for these next games.
Yeah, it's high school basketball, and it's fun. Regardless, the environments have been great. Obviously, Everest is usually a good crowd, and East is a good crowd. So it's going to be a fun atmosphere, and we're looking forward to it.
I'm looking forward to it as well. So we'll talk to you Friday. Thanks for coming in tonight.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
That's head coach Nate Lemmens of the Wausau West Warriors. We'll take a break, come back with more here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
As we move into a new year, a look back at some holiday hoops action from last week. I'm Travis Wilson, and this is a WisSports.net Minute brought to you by NFHSNetwork.com. More high school sports news after this.
Do you ever wish you could be in two places at once? With homework, carpool, practice, and everything else, sometimes you just can't make it to every game. But the NFHS Network's streaming platform makes that a little easier. For just $11.99 a month, you can watch unlimited high school sports live and on demand, at home or on the go. You can watch online or on one of our mobile or connected TV apps. Visit NFHSNetwork.com and subscribe today to never miss another game.
A happy new year to everyone out there, and we're looking forward to another great year of high school sports coverage at WisSports.net. Last week, we wrapped up 2023 with some outstanding holiday hoops events around the state. At the Wisconsin Basketball Yearbook Shootout in Mequon, Division III top-ranked St. Thomas More split a pair of games, falling in a spotlight Wednesday night game to Wisconsin Lutheran 83-73 after being down by 30 points at halftime. The Cavaliers rebounded with an impressive win on Friday, defeating Nicolay 86-79 in overtime as senior Amari McCautry scored a game-high 37 points. Defending D1 champ De Pere stayed unbeaten, first dispatching second-ranked Marquette 78-61 on Thursday before a 73-58 win against third-ranked Homestead a day later. Junior Wisconsin commit Zach Kinziger scored a combined 52 points in the two games. Cumberland is just 3-4 on the season, but the Beavers got quite a highlight in the Rice Lake tournament on Friday, as junior Gavin Gores went for 51 points and 19 rebounds in a 71-59 victory against Regis. The 6'9 big man has offers from UW Green Bay, South Dakota State, and Loyola. The highest scoring output of the season so far in boys hoops came last week, when Sun Prairie West Chris Davis Jr. finished with 61 points as the Wolves held off Carmen Northwest 103-91. This has been a WisSports.net Minute. Check us out online at WisSports.net.
What's your idea of fall fun? Maybe it's hitting the trails on a new ATV. Then it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Or if you're thinking of a UTV for hauling wood or hunting, or maybe just because it would make the tasks around your property so much easier, it's time to call CCU. ATVs, UTVs, utility tractors, and their attachments for care of your property. Whether you need it for fun or to get the job done, Clover Belt Credit Union is here to help with the great rate financing you want. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Thinking about a motorhome or maybe a snowplow for your ATV or utility tractor? Call CCU for great rate financing. And if you're thinking motorcycle, Clover Belt Credit Union has the financing you need for the bike you want. Call or apply online at ccuwausau.com. Check it out. For vehicle loans, for mortgages, for financing fall fun, call Clover Belt Credit Union. That's CCU. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. BullFallsRadio.com. Mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Always good to talk to Coach Lemmens. Again, really, you like the coaches. I can really see that they're thinking about every aspect of the game in terms of strategy, in terms of the interpersonal relationships and everything like that. And it's hard to believe 11th year. I mean, it seems like he just arrived because I was around. So it's like, but really impressed with what they did. And also, real quickly, before we move on to talk briefly about hockey before we have our next guest, I think you kind of touched on it with the discussion. Sometimes it's not easy to change up, even if it's subtle or major, in terms of what coaching, because he had told me before the first game that day we're doing things differently here defensively, and it's really working out nicely for this group. And it's really, I think, to have that ability to make adjustments, to learn even, in terms of what works for a certain group or not.
Yeah, I mean, it's a leap of faith to make that jump and decide that we're going to try this, we're going to make it work for this group. I do think, though, at the end of the day, it's a big deal when coaches will change up based on their personnel. You have to. You can't. I think high school coaches especially, it can't always be this system is going to work. It's the players are going to work in this system, and you adjust it as needing. And it's nice to see when you do that, and then you find the success in it, and the kids can break habits that they might have already had from other systems, and then they can come in and do the job, and they see the buy-in. So I think that's a big deal. I enjoyed hearing Coach Lemmens' analysis of his guys and his team, and he seems to really know that. And you can tell it's about those player connections is a big deal.
We will have West and Everest Friday night, part of a girls-boys twin bill. starting with the pregame at 5:50, the girls at 6, followed by the boys right here on Bull Falls Radio. Hey, let's talk a little hockey here in this segment. Wisconsin Valley Conference, Stevens Point is now the number 1 ranked team in the state. Panthers are still undefeated. They're 5-0 in the conference, 10-0-1 overall. Wausau West 4-1 in the conference, but 7-7 overall. You got Rapids 3-2 in the conference, 10-2 overall. EMU, East Merrill United, 1-3, 1-11 overall. DC Everest 1-4 in the conference, 4-10 overall. Marshfield 0-4, 6-9. Stevens Point and Wausau West were both on the east side of the state for tournament events. Wausau West went 1-2. They lost their last 2 games last Thursday to the then number 1 ranked Edgewood 4-2, and then on Friday fell to Middleton 6-4. And Stevens Point won the tournament over in the Appleton area, including a win over ranked Bayport for the second time this year, 6-1 in the championship round, and they beat Eau Claire North 6-0 in the semifinals. Stevens Point looking very, very strong. Wisconsin Rapids looking very, very strong. Their only losses came to Stevens Point and Wausau West, both in tight games. And Rapids gets another crack at Stevens Point tomorrow night. Big one in the Valley. Spash had defeated Rapids just a couple of weeks ago at the Willett 3-1, a game that went right down to the third period. And Wisconsin Rapids will try to get a piece of Stevens Point tomorrow night in the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Wausau West, I know right now the coach wants to get more out of this team. I mean, yes, they're playing a very competitive schedule. They have the Valley bye tomorrow. They take on Hudson Saturday, 5:30 face-off right here on Bull Falls Radio. But Wausau West, a little bit of a 8-day break, I think a chance to reset. And when you have high expectations and when it's not quite going the way it goes, coaches have to push the buttons as well.
Well, yeah, and you start by you start by picking the players that you think you need to either get a little bit more out or that are doing not doing exactly what you need out of them on whether it's in the rink or on the court. You want them to reach their highest potential. So, unfortunately, sometimes that's got to come from the coach being very direct and telling a high school athlete what they need to do more of. And I think now's the time with some extra practice time and a little bit dormant on your schedule. You don't rewrite the wheel, but you maybe start tweaking some things that you think can get you to that point, not only in terms of your offensive and defensive strategies, but also in terms of players raising their game up, which is just going to elevate your team play when you get the most out of each guy.
Girls hockey, the Central Wisconsin Storm ranked second in the state. They're now 10-3. They competed in the Culver's Cup tournament in Madison last week. On Wednesday, they defeated the Cap City Cougars 6-1. 6 different goal scores for the Storm. Ilsa Brunner had 20 saves in the game. Then last Thursday, they avenged one of their early season losses. They had fallen to St. Croix Falls earlier by a score of 2-1. This time they won 4-2. Tristan Wickland, who was a previous guest on this program just a few weeks back, had a hat trick. Claire Kalmus, the goaltender, had 21 saves. Then in the championship round, it was number 1 and number 2. Superior number 1, Central Wisconsin Storm at the time number 3. But Superior edged the Storm with a third period goal, 3-2. Gabby Heiser and Abigail Dine had goals for the Storm. Claire Kalmus, 25 saves. Storm back in action tomorrow night at the Marathon Park Ice Arena, taking on the Fox City Stars. And those teams have had some big playoff matchups in recent years. Always a fun one. Storm and the Fox City Stars, and we will have that one. So I know Jeff Gress will be in front of his radio tomorrow night. Yep. 6:50 for the pregame, 7 o'clock for the opening face-off. And then the Storm back in action on the road Saturday at the Fond du Lac Warbirds as well. When they do go on the road, they have long trips. Because when you're a co-op and it takes away those, you don't have a DC Everest Wausau West rivalry because of that, and they challenge themselves. But very good start for the Storm. We had Jana Wimmer on. They've challenged themselves. They were able to fall to St. Croix Falls and then beat them and play very tough against number 1 Superior. So 10-3 at this point. Have to feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I mean, again, there's little progressions throughout the season that coaches are analyzing how their players are playing and how their team's doing, and you get those double digit wins right before or right at the holiday time. I think that's a big deal when that's roughly pretty much half of everybody's scheduled games, and for the Storm, it's obviously a lot different. they're going to find the games. You have to if you want to challenge yourself as much as you possibly can. The nice thing is, again, when you put that schedule in place and you push your kids into trying to get the W's in those big games, and they follow through on it. That's a big pride moment, a big builder of confidence, and it spirals usually in the right direction, the way you want to see your team play throughout the season, and leads to good things at the end of the season by building that strength and that core idea of winning and being successful.
So looking forward to see the Storm tomorrow night. Again, you can tune in right here on Bull Falls Radio, starting with the pregame show at 6:50. We're going to take a break. We have another hour to go, and we'll have our student-athlete guest coming up next from Mosinee High School, Keagan Jirsch, three-sport athlete for the Mosinee Indians. So we'll talk to Keagan coming up here as we continue the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
If you're looking for your next ride, check out Mankey GMC in Schofield. Formerly Fred Miller Automotive, Mankey GMC serves Schofield, Wausau, Marshfield, and Stevens Point with a huge selection of new and pre-owned vehicles. Explore a range of top-notch SUVs like Acadia, Terrain, and Yukon, or choose from the rugged Sierra truck lineup, or even a certified pre-owned vehicle. No matter your dream vehicle awaits at Mankey GMC, 448 Grand Avenue in Schofield, and online at MankeyAuto.com. Mankey GMC in Schofield, where your journey begins.
We are the NFHS. That stands for the National Federation of State High School Associations. But really, what we stand for, together with the WIAA, are the 178,000 high school sports students in Wisconsin. And so we stand. We stand for the runners, soccer and basketball players. We stand for their coaches, administrators, and officials. We stand for the swimmers, football players, and wrestlers. We stand for the golfers, softball, and volleyball players. We stand as the national leader and advocate for high school athletics and all who participate in them and make them possible. Because it is our purpose to ensure that high school students get to play, perform, and compete together. To learn more about who we are and what we stand for, visit nfhs.org.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, online at bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices and Alexa by searching WXCO, and on the Civic Media app. Along with Jeff Grass, I'm Chad Holmes, and very happy to welcome back to the program. And not too many of our return guests have been in different seasons, but because he is a multi-sport athlete and a multi-sport star, able to talk to him during the football season a year ago, and this year talking to him about basketball and baseball coming up as well for Mosinee High School, Keagan Jirsch. Keagan, again, thanks for coming back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Hey, and I guess first of all, you just made a decision, and the timing is always nice to be able to have you come in, but you made a decision on what you're going to do for your college, both academic and athletic careers. What was the decision that you made? Where are you going?
I decided to go to South Dakota State.
And to play baseball.
Yep.
And I guess, it's always interesting to hear because it's not an easy decision. I mean, you got to go through a lot to ultimately get there. When did you first seriously start the winnowing down process? When did you really start focusing on, hey, I got to kind of think about where I want to take that next step? Because you've had plenty of schools, I'm sure, reach out. Could you maybe give folks out there maybe a little peek into the process that you had to go through?
Yeah, I was talking to schools during football season. It was tough to go visit schools during football season. So I was talking to different schools and kind of talking to my parents about things. And I didn't really get to like decide and like go visit colleges until football was over because I couldn't miss anything, and those colleges were pretty far away, so it wasn't like a one-day thing. I had to go stay at some hotels and stuff. So right once football season ended, there was a little gap in between football and basketball, and that was really when I knew I really kind of had to get out there and go visit those schools and kind of start pushing the process along a little quicker, and because I knew I wasn't going to have much time once basketball started too. So, and
have you, obviously I'm assuming you play a lot of sports, and we're not going to put you on the spot and make you say which one's your favorite, but has this been like, a dream of yours? I knew, baseball's kind of more heavy on my favorite side, and this is something I always wanted to do, or was it ever in between? Like I don't know where was there ever a question, or was it always baseball was going to be the
It was always
winner?
baseball. My family's big into baseball. My grandpa coached for the Royals. My uncle, he's a AAA manager. My grandpa's now a AAA manager too, but my dad played college ball. Everyone's involved in baseball. So it was kind of, I just started baseball from a really young age, and I just fell in love with it, and that was really that's the sport that's my favorite. Yeah.
So, since we're on the sports, is it difficult? You got the academics, you've got family life, you've got friends, you've got all these sports. Is it ever difficult to balance that? And we always talk to the multiple sport athletes that you're living quite a busy life. Do you ever find that hard, or is there
for
downtime?
Sure? Yes. There's not a lot of downtime, especially because I wanted to go play college baseball. So even in other sports seasons, I was still trying to get my baseball work in, and I was still trying to work. There was time for friends here and there, but sometimes you got to decide what you want to do, and this was a big part of my future and a big dream of mine. So I really had to work at it.
So South Dakota State?
Yep.
Davin Stoffel goes to South Dakota State.
Yeah, he's playing football there.
Yeah. So did you have any contact with him on how he enjoys going to school there and living in that part of the country?
Yeah, I talked to him a little bit. He said he loves the school. He loves the area. So that helped. It's obviously nice knowing someone there to hear what they think about it too before I made that decision. But yeah.
Talking to Keagan Jirsch from Mosinee High School, our student-athlete guest here on the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio. You've had so much varsity athletic experience, whether it's football, basketball, and baseball. I usually ask this later on, but I mean, I remember seeing you on the basketball court when you were at West and starting as a freshman at the Wisconsin Valley Conference level. How have you changed as an athlete? And it doesn't have to be a specific sport, but when you first started having the opportunities to be able to grow and learn, not have to watch and learn, but actually play and learn, how much has that helped you, and how different are you in all three of your sports now than you were maybe as a freshman?
Yeah, I'd say just the experience starting that young, and just being able to understand, be put in those situations earlier at a younger age. So now I'm in that situation. It's a lot easier because I know what to do. I'm more relaxed. My heart's not pounding out of my chest. It's more of a almost confidence. Starting that young also helps with my confidence and just being able to trust the ability. Hey, I've been here before, and I know I can do it. So let's just go out and play.
Real fast before we let Jeff back in, you said you're basically a baseball family, a baseball kind of guy. Have you always played multiple sports? Did you start baseball earlier than jump on board with maybe football and basketball, or were you always, basically playing whatever season it may be and being out there?
Yeah, it was all three of those sports from the start, and I did do a little bit of track when I was younger too. But
do you find it hard or is it a role you take on as a leader? I know sometimes when guys want it. Some guys want to be the quiet leader. Some guys are vocal leaders. Some guys can do it because of their personality. Some guys have nothing to do with it. Do you see yourself in all those sports? And I imagine it takes some effort if you are a leader from one sport to the next, that it's And it's not easy. You got to keep doing it. You got to be that guy that you want people to, fall back on and be there for them. I mean, is that one of your roles you take on for the team? And how do you look at yourself as being an integral part of each sports teams you play on throughout the 3 seasons?
Yeah, that was another thing with just having that experience at that young age, at that freshman year. Just having the confidence. I really worked on, as the years progressed, I really worked on being more vocal. Because I was kind of a quieter kid. I still am a little bit, but I'm really trying to push myself outside of my comfort zone and just be able to take that extra vocal step. Because I'd lead by example, but there was not always that time where I would call someone out for doing something wrong, or just being more communicating more and being more, vocal.
Let's talk about basketball since we're now in the midst of the season. You had a really nice weekend over in Green Bay. You had 35 in the last game. I think you had 29 in the other game. So obviously playing some good hoops right now. And your team's 9-1 so far this season. And one of the things that kind of jumps out is while you are putting up some pretty good point numbers, boy, you got, I think, 6 kids that are either like 9.8 points or higher. You don't see that very often in high school basketball around here. It looks like you got a lot of kids that are really playing at a high level. How have you looked at the first 10 games for your team right now?
Yeah, this team is so fun to play with. I'd say the biggest thing is we just play together so well. We know we've played together for a while, and we know what the other person's thinking. So that's where we play together, and we can trust each other too. So we move the ball, we push up the court, we like to run a lot. So there's another thing. I'd say we're not selfish either. We pass the ball. If you look, we got guys averaging probably over 5 assists a game. We got probably 2 or 3 guys averaging around 6-7 assists. So we're a fun team, and I love playing with these guys.
And how about for your team? You're talking about all the positives, all the good things that you guys do, and I'm sure as a player, as all the players do that are really engaged in how successful their teams are, beyond what the coaches tell you, you do some self-analyzation like, hey, guys, if we want to take the next step or make it as far as we can in the playoffs or get to state, which, we have all these goals. What do you think your team needs to keep working on that they could do a little better on as the season progresses?
Yeah, well, we watch film twice a week. One thing that we really noticed from this weekend was our defense. We're a little slow on our defensive rotations because we rely on a lot of help defense, and our defense is together. Our coach always says you don't guard one man, you guard all 5. So that's a big thing that we've been really trying to work on is communicating to know where your help is, where to force your guy, and just the rotational part of the defense is what we're really trying to work on right now. Because we noticed watching film, we didn't really notice it really much during the game, but this weekend we had. Our assistant coaches, not all of them were there because of the tournament, because it was a tournament, so we stayed overnight. Those coaches really noticed watching on the screen, it was a lot easier for them to pick that stuff up. So that's one thing that we're really working on this week is our defense.
Could you talk about some of your teammates, maybe what they bring to the table that have helped your team with the success? It's not just been this year. The last few years have been really successful campaigns for Mosinee basketball. Who else has been, you feel, as leaders, both in terms of what they provide on the court and maybe just as part of the program?
Yeah, I'd say this year Landon Tomer really stepped up. With Davin leaving,
Mr. Double-Double. Right?
Yeah, with Davin leaving, he knew that he was going to have to step up and get more physical, and I think he's really been playing well, and he's dominant on that glass, and he flies around. So he's really stepped up playing wise, and honestly being a leader too. He really took that extra step, and he leads by example. He's one of those guys who's not the loudest. He doesn't talk as much, but he really just leads by example and does the right thing all the time.
And speaking of your teammates, do you have a lot of teammates that follow through with you yourself? You guys are a bunch of you are in football, a bunch of you are in basketball, a bunch of you are in baseball. and how I guess that comes into play as your season stretch, or is it a different makeup from the football team to the basketball team to the baseball team? Or is there a core group that you guys are all in the same sports?
Yeah,
around each other a lot, which I would think would make you a lot stronger.
Yeah, we have a lot of guys at Mosinee who play multi-sports, so that's also where the team chemistry comes in, because we've played with each other through every sport. There's a lot of 3-sport athletes, 2-sport athletes, and that I feel like that really helps us play together and trust each other too.
One of the things that's kind of noticeable about Mosinee right now is that I think there's a feeling that you have an opportunity, that there's a chance to do something special. And one of the things that I think is so smart when you do have a team like yourself, where you have some kids who have proven that they can play very well, is to schedule well. And it looks like this year, even as we look forward, I mean, it's got to be exciting to play some of the teams that you played, even the Keagan game that you played in that 101 to 93 or something like that. But then you look and you have Marathon coming up. You got Everest. There's always going to be tough. I think Xavier is on your schedule. I mean, you got these interesting games outside your conference. I imagine that's fun for everybody, isn't it?
For sure. Our coach Coach Lindsay, he always tries to go out there and find the best teams that we can play, just to get us prepared for the postseason, because you never know what you're going to see in the postseason. And when you see those tough teams earlier, it's a lot easier to be in that scenario or that moment in the game without just being there in the playoffs. So to get those tough games in, like the Keagan game, and we were down 23 at halftime or something against Keagan, to show that we could battle back and play like that was a really big step for us. And just knowing that's there and that we could really do this year.
What'd you find out in that first half? Because sometimes a team can go undefeated and not get challenged, and then all of a sudden the first time you get challenged is in the a sectional semifinal or something like that. I think it's good to be tested and to find maybe a hidden flaw somewhere. What did your team find out when you played Keagan and all of a sudden you look up and it's 23 points at halftime?
Yeah, I think we were just a little rattled in the beginning, because we haven't really faced that competition yet until then. So the second half we finally settled in and we started playing together and going back to the little things that we do and what makes us our team. So that really helped us get ready. Yeah.
And how about jumping into your conference? Right now, you guys are sitting in the mix of things, hoping to, everybody wants to win the conference, so that's, I'm assuming, an automatic goal that you want to have and a title at the end of the season. But you got Rhineland, who's hanging around, that you've had rivalry with at 3-0. Medford has been consistent and solid over the last couple of years, and Lakeland right now sitting at 4-0. I guess in all the sports you play and all the times and the amount of varsity experience you've had where you've logged time in all these different gyms, I guess, do you have a rivalry that's fun in each sport, or one that's kind of consistent across the board that you look forward to playing and like, hey, we're all going to be up for this game because we are not losing to this team, and maybe a place that you either love to play or hate to play outside your own gym?
Yeah, I know who's going to be.
I'd say our rival's Medford. Yeah, Medford's been a pretty big rival, and those games are always fun.
Have you played them yet this year?
We played them once this year in basketball. Okay.
Yeah, we have had kids from Mosinee on, and the football, and even early in the winter, that were part of your football team. And it sounds like that going over there and winning that game this fall was significant. It's more fun actually to win on the road sometimes than win at home, isn't it?
Yes, for sure. It's always nice to go to their place and to win that football game. That was kind of deciding the conference too. So we knew it was a big game, and to go there and do it at their place was pretty special.
Again, we're talking to Keagan Jirsch from Mosinee High School here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. I got to ask you, because you've had was baseball as a sophomore the only state trip you've had so far?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was interesting, because I was actually over there, and massive storm came through, and you weren't able to play at Fox City Stadium. They had to move it over to Appleton West.
Yeah.
Is there some unfinished business in terms of just your overall high school sports career that it's important either here in the winter or then in the spring to get to the state tournament again?
Oh, for sure. Every year, I think every sport sends out like what's your goals for the season? What's just different, like a survey, and every time that goal, it's always a state appearance, and Yeah, that's one of my big goals this year too for basketball, and then obviously baseball coming up. It's I want to go experience that, and I want to feel that because I've heard high school state is it's an experience that you'll never feel if you don't get there. So
piggybacking off that, and not to say state wherever you play it is big, but was there something missing when you weren't able to play at Fox City Stadium as a sophomore?
Yeah. It didn't feel as big of a game as it actually was. So that kind of hurt, but it's just a even bigger goal for me now to get back there to be able to play there this year.
With playing since a freshman, and this is your senior year, and I remember from the time I coached or even when I played, if you really love something and mean something and you put your heart and soul into it, you got to enjoy each game, but you don't want to see each game pass because then there's one less you get. What do you think will be the thing you'll miss most about high school athletics when even you've already experienced in football? Now basketball at some point will come to an end, and you'll start baseball up, and at some point it'll come to an end. What do you think you're going to miss the most when your high school career is done?
I'd say just competing with my buddies. There's nothing better than going out there and competing with your brothers and just knowing that they got your back. So that's probably the biggest thing.
Playing at such a high level at South Dakota State is special in itself. But what are you going to miss about being a multi-sport guy? Because obviously as a baseball, you get in the scholarship and they want you to focus on that, and you need to, obviously, at that level. But I imagine there's going to be something missing when you're not able to play football anymore and play basketball at the competitive level that you do right now. Do you feel like you're going to be missing anything, or is it just that you're ready to take that next step in your baseball career?
Oh, I'm for sure going to miss it. I've played multi-sports since I was young, and it's not going to feel the same, but at the same time, baseball is what I want to do, and I want to eventually my goal is to get drafted, so I got to do it and just grind.
Let me ask you about that, because when we've had kids that are committed to play at the Division I level in college, it is such a big jump. No matter what sport it is. When you look at your baseball right now, what are the areas that you have to get better at? It could be, whether it's, between the lines, and we've often heard it's outside the lines in terms of building the body and stuff like that. When you look ahead, what are you going to have to do to maybe set the runway so you can be successful at the next level?
I'd say keep working hard in the weight room, get bigger and stronger, and then from the pitching side of it, it's more mechanically on the mound. Just getting the mechanics down, because I wasn't always a pitcher. When I was younger, I'd just go on the mound and throw as hard as I could. I didn't know what I was doing. So that's a big thing, is getting those mechanics down, and I think that will really help me.
What is your pitching repertoire?
I throw a fastball, changeup, and a slider.
What's your best pitch?
Probably fastball.
Okay. Well, what do you hit on the gun?
I hit 93 this summer.
Wow.
My goal is to get to 95, 96 this high school season.
Very good. I wouldn't want to step in against that.
But again, looking forward, besides the baseball attraction that was at South Dakota, do you have any interest in what you want to major in, what you want to be after it is all said and done?
I'm not sure exactly what I want to major in yet. It's either something on the business side or like a health science type thing. I'd like to know how the body works and how the different muscles move, and I just feel like that'd be cool to know.
Being a multiple sport athlete too, we always like to ask, because I think there's this credit and this positivity that has to be a good thing because of all the work you put in. When you finally do get downtime and you're not working out in your sport, or your academics are done or no practices, whatever, what do you like to do for your free time? Do you find free time? If you can.
When I do have free time, if it's during hunting season, I like to hunt. I fish sometimes, and then I do play a little bit of video games too.
Oh, dang it. I had a question, and then you jumped in, and now it's completely slipped my mind. Oh, geez. And it was a good question.
Obviously throwing the blame on me. Yeah.
No, it's like I had a really good question. What the heck was my question? And it's like, that always just slipped my mind. I guess maybe we're going to have to go to the final question. Oh, man, I was going to drive, and I know when I'm driving home tonight, it's going to pop back into my head. What was that question? Oh. Ask the question. You
All
ask
right,
the
here's
question.
here's our final one.
I might think of it before we
You
get
may
done
have an
here.
extra one.
Okay.
Here. We'll see if he comes up with it.
Okay.
But we love to hear from the student-athlete guests we have on here, especially ones that, have spent a lot of time in high school athletics. You look back to yourself as a freshman, and now you look at as your time now passes into your senior year, and you got freshmen coming in, or somebody that's in 8th grade, and they ask you, you want to give them some advice on what you think would make their high school career the most fulfilling. What would you tell them? What would you share with them? That is why it's a big deal.
Like you're saying, advice.
What advice would you give them to make their high school career the most fulfilling that you found in your time?
Okay. I'd say probably work as hard as you possibly can and never take anything for granted, because it goes by fast. Once you get, it doesn't feel like it'll go by fast, but once you get there, it flies. So just don't take anything for granted.
And I did remember it.
Here we go. Big moment.
I'm not completely losing my mind. I want to ask you, how big of an advantage is it for you as a baseball player having the family connection that knows what it takes to get to the highest level? Having family that's actually worked in Major League Baseball.
Oh, it's awesome. I always go work out with my dad. My dad has been around baseball his whole life, so I know I need to listen to him if I want to be successful. And then also, I mean, we're at Christmas and we're talking about baseball, so it's just a lot of talking about baseball. And I know if I have a question, I can reach out to my dad, my grandpa, my uncle, any of them, and one of them will find an answer. If they don't have it, they'll find it. Otherwise, they'll have it and they'll let me know. And we talk a lot. We talk a lot of baseball.
Fantastic. Anything else, Jeff?
Oh, I'm good. You put an extra one on him. So
I know. I
that.
felt like I owed you one after that.
Oh, I'm good.
Keagan, again, congratulations. I know it's such a big decision when you make that decision to take that next step. Congrats on that. Congrats on what's been just an incredible multi-sport athletic career at Mosinee. And best of luck on getting back to state, either here in the winter or in baseball, or even better yet, in both, right?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you guys for having me.
Absolutely. Keagan Jirsch from Mosinee High School. We'll take a break, come back with more. It's the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Take your career to the next level with Graphic Packaging International. Work with a team to make Hot Pocket sleeves and the food trays you find at our local fair. Join the GPI team and experience the benefits of one of the highest paying manufacturers in the area, starting at almost $22.55 per hour. Enjoy job security, a clean facility, and an excellent benefits package, including a week of vacation after 4 months and 2 weeks after a year. Apply today at graphicpkg.com and elevate your career with Graphic Packaging.
A game without a crowd is just a scrimmage. A performance without an audience is just a rehearsal. Without your presence, high school sports and the performing arts aren't possible. Ensure that these essential extracurricular activities continue to enrich the lives of students in Wisconsin. Purchase a ticket to your local high school's game or performance.
This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
What's your idea of fall fun? Maybe it's hitting the trails on a new ATV. Then it's time to call CCU. That's Clover Belt Credit Union. Or if you're thinking of a UTV for hauling wood or hunting, or maybe just because it would make the tasks around your property so much easier, it's time to call CCU. ATVs, UTVs, utility tractors, and their attachments for care of your property. Whether you need it for fun or to get the job done, Clover Belt Credit Union is here to help with the great financing you want. What are you waiting for? Life's too short and winter's too long. Thinking about a motorhome or maybe a snowplow for your ATV or utility tractor? Call CCU for great financing. And if you're thinking motorcycle, Clover Belt Credit Union has the financing you need for the bike you want. Call or apply online at ccuwausau.com. Check it out. For vehicle loans, for mortgages, for financing fall fun, call Clover Belt Credit Union. That's CCU. Local lenders lending local money, keeping our community strong.
Hungry for flavor-packed fun?
Dive into Red Robin's sizzling burgers, mouth-watering fries, and endless options.
Or maybe you're craving the perfect slice.
Then it's Donato's Pizza, your passport to pizza perfection.
Order now and treat yourself to an unforgettable taste experience.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza, 225548 Rib Mountain Drive in Wausau.
Call 715-301-0019 or log on redrobin.com.
Red Robin and Donato's Pizza.
Winter sports are here. Align your young athletes and yourself with health by scheduling an appointment with Dr. Sarah at Shine Chiropractic in Rib Mountain. Stay in the game with our comprehensive 3-point neurological exam, safe for the entire family. Don't let the daily grind keep you and your student athletes on the sidelines this year. Call Dr. Sarah at 715-298-5104. That's 715-298-5104 in Rib Mountain today.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230, bullfallsradio.com, mobile devices, and Alexa by searching WXCO and on the Civic Media app. Again, thanks to both of our guests. And again, always get a lot out of these conversations. It's always very fun to get the perspective of both the coaches and the student athletes. And again, handle themselves so very well, and it makes our jobs very much easier, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, I just like whether it's the coach or the athlete, you can get a picture painted of what the program is from what they're seeing, and I think that's just a great way to give validity to what's being done, and especially the time that everybody's putting into making a high school team or program successful. It shares that moment, and I think that's a big deal.
Let's talk about girls basketball. I haven't touched on that yet tonight. Look at the Wisconsin Valley Conference. Struggles, I think, is the word. There's a lot of struggles going on. Marshfield is 4-0, but they're 8-3 overall. And they had a couple of tough losses last week. Spash 3-0, 6-6 overall. Then Rapids 2-1, 3-9. West 1-2, 2-8. Merrill 1-2, 7-4 for the Blue Jays. East 1-3, 5-7. Everest 0-4, 1-11. And you can, I think these teams are ready to start playing a lot more conference games.
Yeah, that's.
I think that. But let's start off Marshfield, because I was a little surprised. They had a couple of really tough losses. They had their Marshfield event. It was actually a tough couple of days for the Valley teams because both Marshfield and West played. And in those 4 games, the Valley team lost all 4. On Thursday, Hudson beat Marshfield 61-42. Marshfield actually led 23-20 at halftime, but then outscored 41-19 in the second half. Wausau West on Thursday, they lost as well to Oshkosh West 78-43. Kelly Cray had a double-double, 16 points, 11 boards. Harper Mead 11 for the Warriors. And then on Friday, it was Hudson beating West 63-43. Kelly Cray, 10 points, 10 boards. Ayla Christensen, 14 points. Marshfield, only 23 points. They lost to Oshkosh West 40-23. In those 2 games, they had 42 points and 23 points. And 38 of the total points were scored by Ashley Grankovich. She had 20 points on Thursday, 18 of the 23 on Friday. I was a little surprised that Marshfield struggled so badly in those 2 games on their home court.
Yeah, and it's I think you said it right when you're waiting to get back into conference games, because out of conference, it's just not going the way the Valley wants for most teams. Scoring-wise, I mean, when you have one player put up 18 and you only get 23 at the end of the night, there's just not enough productivity there to win that game, especially against a team. Teams are gunning for each other a little bit in these non-conference schedules to be ready. And I think that those struggles are you can see you're giving up too much on defense and you've got inconsistencies on offense, and that's a bad match for coming up with the W. So, and to be in your own tournament, you don't want to come on your own floor and not showcase yourself in the right way. And unfortunately for Marshfield, it didn't go well those 2 games.
It was a good week for Merrill. They won the North Fond du Lac tournament on Thursday. They beat Milwaukee Golda Meir. Do you remember Golda Meir?
Yep.
Do you remember?
Something with Israel.
Israel's first prime minister.
Yep.
From Milwaukee.
Yep.
But they beat Golda Meir 85-44. Triple-double for Maya Ott. 29 points, 11 boards, 10 assists. Sophie Wendorf, 22 as well for Merrill. And then on Friday, Ott, another massive game as Merrill beat North Fond du Lac 65-50. Ott, 34 points and 9 boards. I'm thinking if I had seen that earlier, I may have invited her to come on the show after those two games, but she really put up big numbers. And again, Merrill 7-4.
Right, and it's some consistency. And if you analyze the whole conference right in one bet, that's what you want in those non-conference games and those games over break. And Merrill was the most consistent, going 2-0. Obviously controlling the game against Milwaukee, but winning a close one against North Fondy. And that player production, goes a long way in terms of her offensive output. That made a big difference for those games.
Wausau East beat Antigo last night, 73-59. Sydney Crawford, 20. Claire Cushman, our guest from last week, had 12. Fifth win of the season already for East. And I'm curious because they play West next Tuesday. I think that's going to be a very interesting game as East has taken some steps forward, but can they take that additional step? Can they... they beat Everest, who's struggling right now, but East has the feeling they put up 70-plus points against Spash earlier. Are they capable of taking that next step with a senior-laden team? And I'm kind of curious to see them.
Well, and I think, that's the big question because they're almost sitting at 500. They've played well. They've got a ton of W's. They're continuing to try to build that program as best they can. You've seen in some of the games and the scores they've had, they've got plenty of offensive output to win the game. And this, both player and coach guests we've had from Wausau East girls basketball have talked about, building this confidence and believing that we can, and then finishing off what they can. So I think even the game against Rapids, because Rapids snuck up in the middle of the pack of that conference in third place at 2-1, and I think to see how they do on Friday right away, it'll give some indication of how these next couple games could go. And you want that to be, West East has. It's cross-time rivals, but it hasn't really been a rivalry game in terms of how the scores have gone over the last couple of years.
Right.
So I think them building into that and looking to take advantage of that, you've got West, Merrill, and East all sitting with that one win. You're going to have some jockeying of
There's
positions.
some opportunities then as well for these teams because for West, they got Everest and East coming up. You look at those both at home as opportunities. All of a sudden, what's been a very tough start, they're 3-2 in the conference. And they do have, Kelly Cray is really one of the top forwards in the conference. They do have some talent. I think it's been, again, the adjustment to a new coach, but now opportunities for Wausau West.
Right, and it's this mentality of I've got to go out and get that next one. We've got to go get it. It's must win because it really jockeys us to a good spot. But just looking at records, and what we've seen out of scores, West should be able to beat Everest. There's another win in the category to move up in the conference lead. They have East, who they've beaten in past years. So I think some opportunity and potential to slide your way up there. So I guess another thing so in that sense you've got to have consistency. You've got to play both ends of the court.
Great Northern, Lakeland, and Rhinelander both undefeated. Mosinee 3-1. Everybody else 1 or no wins. So Lakeland 5-0, 11-2 overall. Rhinelander 4-0, 9-3. Mosinee 3-1, 9-3. Again, Mosinee I think is still in a decent position. They're only lost. They already played Lakeland once. Rhinelander still has them twice. But the thing that jumped out is for the first time this year, Christina Wimette was actually held in check in the two games. And, of course, we talked to the coach, Melissa Wimette, last week, and they were going to challenge themselves, and they did. They beat Lake Mills Thursday, 51-36. Christina had 19 points. Sailor Timmerman, 14. Ava Evenhouse, 13. And then on Friday, held to 33 points. That's the thing that jumped out. Lakeland, Watertown. It was the Watertown tournament. Again, a long trek for the T-Birds. Watertown beat them 48-33. Timmerman, 11 points, but Christina Wimette held to 7. She had been consistently in the 20s and 30s for the most part. Right. And as I said earlier, that to our student-athlete guest, when they were down 23 points at halftime, I imagine that Melissa Wimette and that entire Lakeland team learned a lot in that game.
Well, and as much as it's a little culture shock, too, as a team, you see them taking down somebody that's been just pouring in numbers offensively against any team she plays against and held in check. Number one, you got to give the team or the individual that was doing the damage on the other side a lot of credit. But I think
I would love to see that. Because that defensively they must have focused completely.
And I just said how does your team respond? You go into a little shock and don't play as well and play a little tighter and think shots don't fall. You make some more mistakes than you normally would, I would think, or are you able to overcome it? Is somebody else going to step up and put that team on their shoulders? And obviously it was, that 15 points could have still been a little tight. Even with some free throws at the end, we don't, know how that one played out. But
you always mention that. You always mention that though. About how these games could be tighter because of free throws at the end.
Well, they could,
but you always do it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like clockwork.
Yeah,
that's my go-to. You're always looking at the positive possibilities here.
Right, I'm saying we don't. Again, I didn't watch it. You didn't watch it, so we're looking at paper of what the score is.
They could have been down by 30, though.
They could have, and they came back and cut it. I like to think Lakeland, you know what I mean. I know you're giving me a hard time. But I like to think with
Lakeland,
got to
keep things interesting.
With Lakeland, what they've had and what they've been able to do against a lot of teams that they were probably in the mix of things are pretty close. And like we talked with Coach Lemmens a little bit, teams are going to hit a bump in the road or get rolled over a little bit on some things and how you respond for that. So I'm sure they're going to learn a lot from it to state your earlier point.
And another game I wanted to mention was Rhinelander. I said they're 4-0, 9-3 overall. They beat Ashland Thursday, 75-39. And I just wanted to mention because Auburn Clark, 41 points in that game, 9 3-pointers.
Freshman.
I mean, just, very interesting. I mean, we talk about it a lot with girls basketball. When you have kids that can put it in the hole, both boys and girls, it gives you a few less gray hairs as a coach, right?
Oh, right. And it's got somebody you can go to and somebody that you can draw plays up and somebody that you don't get the basket you want because your team's playing a little inconsistently in your offensive flow. You can draw something up and make sure that player gets the ball. I think it just a massive weapon as much as too they're going to get the focus each night and have to take on that pressure. So 41 points is a lot of points by any basketball player.
Merriwood South, the Assumption had some time off. They're 6-0, 10-0 overall. Auburndale 4-0, 7-3 overall. Stratford 4-2 in the conference, 6-6. Edgar also 6-6 overall, 4-3 in the conference. Newman 1-6, 2-10. Marathon I think is 4-9 overall. 1-6 in the conference because I could not find a score in their game against Montello last Thursday, but they played Tomahawk in the championship round of that tournament Friday, right. So I'm guessing Marathon won that game. And then Marathon also had a non-conference win last night over Iola, 46-27. Also wanted to, because with Assumption being off, we'll put them aside until we talk about the future here in the next segment. I had a chance to see Newman at Amherst Thursday. Amherst had a big start, and then they had a big start in the second half. Other than that, Mrs. Lincoln, how'd you enjoy the play? But they outscored Amherst the rest of the way. I thought Shields played really well. Lily Shields, 21 points. Ashley Jankowski, I thought, played her best game that I've seen her play, 17. Newman, despite being 2-10, as you look at it, they lost by 1 to Edgar on the road. They're going to have opportunities. I still think to win some basketball games, both in the conference and out of the conference, coming down the stretch. And they were missing, again, one of their top performers as well in Evie Bates. I think Newman at 2-10 is underrepresented. Maybe maybe I got the homer hat on a little bit, but I do think they're a better team than that record indicates.
Yeah, I don't know. You always don't. People gotta have patience sometimes because when new coaches roll in, they have to decide what they want to keep that the players know, what they need to instill. Is there need to be a climate change? Is the climate good? What do we need to tweak? There's a lot of evaluating, and both players and coaches and new programs like that need time to develop. I think if I can remember back to the first time when I took over the Newman boys, we were looking just to be competitive. We were looking to stay in games. We were looking like, why did we lose by 1? Why weren't we close? So I think watching and having enough conversations with Coach Clausius on the side, because I work there, it's just looking at good attitudes that they have, playing hard, understanding the new system that he wants and the things he wants to tweak. And I think you're going to eventually see these games a second time around. You still got to give them a little patience here. They got a tough schedule coming up. They play Phillips. They play Assumption. They play Auburndale. All these top teams in both Merriwood South and North.
And I was talking to him about that point before the game Thursday. I said, basically, you just want to get through these games, do enough again, they want to win the
enough
games.
good things to grow and develop.
But they don't want to get, as you know, sometimes you get pounded, and then there can be a hangover when you have the teams that say you would expect to beat. Because after that, the schedule does get, I would say, where they have some really good opportunities. But boy, it's hard when you have bang, 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 and you're trying to get through those really tough opponents.
Right, and I think whenever I watch them play, there's just some of those things they've got to overcome from a certain mistake or a couple mistakes in a row that can tweak that game to not be on the winning side of the scoreboard. And I think, they're doing that. They're trying to break it down. And, it's also a numbers game. Sometimes at practices, they have 7 or 8 girls that are able to practice. There's not a lot of kids, and that's difficult.
Play and error is not the same, right?
Yes, definitely. So I think you're right when you're going to say you're going to see some good moments coming from them, and things are still yet to come. And I think that first year like that is all about instilling the process, and we grow from there.
We're going to take a 1-minute break and then come back and look ahead about boys and girls basketball, some of the matchups to look forward to in the next week. Coming up in 1 minute here on Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230.
Well, Emily made the honor roll.
Oh, good for her.
Yeah, we're really proud of her. Tyler, on the other hand, though.
What's going on?
He's been moody lately, just feeling down and not like himself.
Oh, we've been there. Nick was struggling last spring. He was so anxious and stressed.
Really? What helped?
Well, he joined the soccer team. And ever since, he's been a lot happier. He has more energy, he's less stressed, and he's definitely in a better mood at home. It's made a huge difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm glad he's getting out of the house, he's getting some exercise, and he's off his phone for once. It's been good for his mental health.
Sounds like it's been good for your mental health, too.
Participating in Wisconsin high school sports improves students' physical and mental health. Encourage your son or daughter to get involved. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association.
And welcome back. Big High School Sports Show, Bull Falls Radio, 98.9 and 1230. Again, if you miss any of the program, you can get it as a podcast. Go to bullfallsradio.com/sports. Click on the Big High School Sports Show logo, or just wherever you get your podcasts. Search out the Big High School Sports Show. With Jeff Gress, I'm Chad Holmes. Well, let's start talking about what's going to be coming up. Let's start off with the boys in terms of the future. And it's exciting in the Valley because, number one, we got some really big games, but also we now get into that Friday-Tuesday pattern. And we're going to get a real feel for this conference, especially with the big Marshfield Smash game coming up.
Yeah, and so for Marshfield, obviously they have the bye this weekend. They pick up Brookfield Central on Saturday, which I think is a good game to get non-conference. And then you got the one for those two teams that at least for Marshfield yet to be undefeated. Just that rivalry at the top of the conference. Spash, they'll get Merrill's going to throw everything at them they can, and you'll see which if Spash is able to continue to keep that record unblemished. And I think I'm interested to see the middle of the pack here with West, East, and Everest. They're all going to kind of run into each other a little bit. And I really think, I know, again, it's one game at a time, but we get to analyze multiple games. I think there can be a lot of jockeying there. And Spash or Marshfield, one of those guys is going to come up with one loss out of here. So some of these teams could be sitting in a pretty good spot if it's consistency. And taking your conferences because everybody's going to give each other their best shot. So you got to knock them back and be consistent.
And Rapids and East, I think, could be interesting because I think Rapids is actually they've been playing pretty competitive. They were a 3-point field goal away from beating West right before Christmas, and they're a team that likes to shoot the three. If they're hot, it could be a very high-scoring game at the East Gym.
And I think even though they lost, they played Oshkosh West well over in the Century Classic at 74-68. So I think. Two different Rapids is continuing to try to dig themselves out of the cellar as that program, and again with a new coach. And for East, they just want to look for they've got a 9-2 overall record, have played some very good basketball, but just looking for that consistency in the conference against the teams that they're going to face. And again, some jockeying spots if they can get the win with Rapids coming over, and then over at West, that sets them pretty. So a lot of games to go forth here in the conference that are jumping up.
We didn't mention the Oshkosh West Rapids game at Century. It was actually 40-25 Rapids at halftime, and then 49-25, 49-26 in the second half. So again, they're there. They're there. I mean, against West, it was the same thing. They're there. They have to figure out how to win some of these games. And as you said, I mean, I'm really looking forward to both the Everest West game Friday and the East West game Tuesday. Both games will be broadcast live here on Bull Falls Radio. And it's really a great opportunity. If West continues, I think, to put together, and I think the coach hit on the head, this team really does. I mean, they work hard. They execute well. I think they're not going to win the battle off the bus. You won't say, oh, wow. But they come out there and they execute. I think both those games are, I mean, boy, I think they're just really even matchups. I think Everest is still a very good team. I think the coach was exactly right. They're a team that has challenged themselves. And East, physically, if you take the bus battle, I think they're going to look better than because they do have some size.
Team. Yeah, and I think that's what, again, part of the beauty of high school sports. You got teams and athletes that are made up in different ways based on the physicality, based on strengths and weaknesses, and that's where this comes cool. And I think that's the neat part about the Valley is having three teams right in the same vicinity. It really makes for some rivalry games, and sometimes that's the biggest deal in all. It doesn't matter where your team stands at that point. It's coming off and have all that rivalry game against each other. And I think it's kind of a neat thing with 3, 4, 5 right in that conference.
Great Northern Conference, some interesting matchups. I think teams near the top. We got Rhinelander at Lakeland Friday night. They got Mosinee at Rhinelander Tuesday among the action. What jumps out in the GNC?
I just think kind of waiting for Mosinee to take headway. They just, based on schedules, the way the schedules have broke down, teams have kind of been hanging around. But just from what I've seen in cross, I finally got to watch Lakeland play against East. I just think Mosinee is going to take control of that conference once they start getting to play some of these other teams. And then as far as Lakeland, Rhinelander go, it'll be an interesting one to see who hangs around right behind Mosinee on that. So I think these next couple conference games, Lakeland and Rhinelander will each, somebody's coming out of there with a loss. Mosinee's going to beat Tomahawk on Friday, but then they turn around and get Rhinelander, can put them at bay. And I think those are going to be some big games coming up in that conference schedule.
Merriwood South, they have the crossovers here this week, Thursday and Friday. But then the game will be Tuesday night. Marathon in Auburndale. Tom Weaver will be there. Have it on our Sports 2 stream. We have the East-West Twin Bill live. Marathon Auburndale live on the Sports 2 stream of bullfallsradio.com and the Civic Media app, and on delay after the East-West Twin Bill. But, boy, Marathon looks good. Last night Colby threw a bit of a curve with the early zone, and it took a little time, but Marathon is so good with the basketball. They are able to move it so well, get open looks, and also be so capable of hitting those open looks.
Yeah, it's a nasty lineup when you face it, and they have youth balanced with experience, balanced with different depths of what those kids can bring to the floor, both offensively and defensively, and just the teamwork and the patience, I think, is such a big deal, and it shows up in their play, from how they're coached to how they play. So I think, that's going to be. I just think at the end of it's going to be a hard fought because these teams go at each other. But again, like you said before, getting off the bus,
probably the first of three.
Yeah, but getting off the bus, I think Marathon's going to want to take that one, especially if they can go over in Auburndale and get it. Right. So getting a seat over there, it's going to probably be pretty hard on Tuesday night.
But that Marathon wants to go out there and show them, because that was a gut punch in the playoffs last year.
Well, yeah, those are always difficult ones that you don't forget. And you bring that spirit and that energy from that past rivalry game right onto that floor that night.
Let's talk about the girls. Wisconsin Valley Conference, again, opportunities for these teams. Conference games Friday and Tuesday. Same matchups that we just talked about in terms of the boys. Marshfield has a tough non-conference game Saturday against Kimberly. They're 9-2. Again, one of those games where you'd like to see the Valley step up a little bit, but Marshfield struggled last week. As I said, West has a chance against Everest and East, both home games, Friday and Tuesday, to try to, I think, turn the page on what was the very difficult end to the 2023 part of their schedule and try to build a little bit. I think that Spash Merrill game on Friday night is an interesting game. Merrill is, what Coach DeBoer has been able to do he has implemented his plan, I think, is as well as any coach. And it was interesting hearing Coach Lemmens talk about, hey, maybe scheduling wise, and he's like, he is the 11th year. Coach DeBoer came in and he's kind of set things up in his first years and I think executed the way he wanted to. You got Marshfield and Spash on Tuesday in a massive game in the conference. So I think the Valley girls schedule really heats up in this next week.
Well, and looking at the two top teams in Marshfield and Spash right now, Marshfield's lost the 2 in their tournament. If they get beat by Kimberly, they lost 3, and then Spash isn't going to be a pushover for them, and they got to go over there and do it. That could be 4 tough. You could be sitting at 4-4 by the time a couple more games or 4-3 by the time a couple more games are up. So, and then looking at let's see, with Spash, I think Merrill has been okay at trying to get the best part of Spash the last couple of years, at least in terms of maybe not they don't always finish the game off, but get in there and give them their best shot. And so I don't think that's one Spash can overlook. And then they turn around and they got conference rival Marshfield. Interesting, I think, is going to be where Rapids stands a little bit because Rhinelander, took it to him 75-56 last night, I believe that was. And so it's interesting to see where they're going to stand because they got Merrill and East also in their next 2 games.
They better defend the 3-point field goal better against East than they did against Rhinelander. Yeah. I just mentioned the 3-point field goals because that's what East can do.
Right.
Last night they had, I think, double-digit 3-pointers East against Anago. I think 11, if I'm not mistaken.
And they got the green light to shoot.
Yeah, so if East is hot, that could be, again, and I think East has, I said West has opportunity. East has an opportunity these 2 games as well. So I think it's very interesting.
Well, right. Yeah. To see that consistency, especially from East, is what they want. A couple wins here and they're at 500. I think West, it's a big deal to just start knocking some more numbers into that win category. They got Everest, who is a team they can beat, and then the rivalry against East. I think Merrill, has some consistency. And with hosting Spash and Rapids, they got 2 home games coming up at their next 2 conference games.
GNC, Rhinelander, undefeated in the conference. They travel to Lakeland Friday night, and then they travel to Mosinee on Tuesday. So right now, Rhinelander right up there may not be the same when we get together next Wednesday.
No, they got 2 of the tougher games here, but again, when we talked about it earlier in the show, having that scoring punch, having that opportunity, always have somebody that you can go to put it in the basket can be one of 2 things. Obviously the other team's going to focus on them, and if they're able to keep them in check, hopefully they can use that ability to create and get some other shots for those players, and hopefully those other players can step up and help you win that game. And I think Rhinelander's got a big test in their next couple conference games. For Mosinee, I think it's just about gaining ground a little bit to stay in the hunt with Lakeland. We saw the earlier game. It's probably going to be tough for them to get the second game against Lakeland also. So Lakeland, seems to be, they knocked down Rhinelander here. They should be in control of their own destiny within that conference.
Marywood South, again, we have some crossovers. There's a, excuse me. Down the wrong pipe there for a moment. Thursday, Auburndale and Stratford meet, which is again, Auburndale's only played 4 conference games. Yeah. They've had postponements for whatever reason. So, and then you have the crossovers on Friday. Neelsville and Assumption, interesting non-conference game. Neelsville usually a pretty solid basketball program, so maybe Assumption will get threatened. But again, for your these crossovers are a little bit more competitive this year on the girls' side because the North is actually competing pretty well.
Yeah, and you take, I think, one of the only few scores that was in fighting distance against the Assumption team was Phillips. Phillips, I think, lost 74-66 earlier in the year for one of their losses, and they're the only ones that kind of came into play. Assumption will have, after you get through the Rib Lake crossover, they'll play Neelsville, which will be interesting, and Neelsville beat up Auburndale 25-59 in one of the tournament games over the Christmas break. So, it'll be interesting to see kind of where some of these teams play out. Auburndale can get a little more clearance because they play Stratford. Stratford, they'll beat, we'll host Abbey on Friday in a crossover game and should be able to beat them after they play back-to-back against Auburndale. And, for Edgar, I think it's always interesting to see where they stand a little bit because they seem like one of those teams that, they're 6-6, they're 4-3 overall. They took kind of a heavy hit from Pacelli.
They don't seem to have the offense they've had in the past.
Right. So it'll be interesting to see where they stand because they host Athens Friday, and Tuesday's non-conference. Again, kind of looking forward to seeing for Newman just to hit. It's going to be hard in the games that they have with Phillips, Assumption, and Auburndale, but I think it's a big deal to stay competitive and not take them, as big losses there and be what they can. And they had Auburndale down when they played them at home here for a little while. Assumption will be a little more challenging, but Phillips is coming into their gym. You always got to get off the bus. So it'll be interesting to see where some of these teams play out, obviously with Assumption, Auburndale up at the top.
And finally, CWC East, the Whitburn right now 3-1, 10-1 overall. Bondwell tops that conference 4-0, 10-2. And Whitburn has a couple of home games against Manawa, who is a 500 team. And then on Tuesday against Amherst, who is just over 500 overall. But Whitburn, again, I mean, they've got a really good team, but I'm kind of...
You got to get by Bondwell.
That's it, because, I mean, that loss kind of hangs out there. And it's like, how good is Whitburn? And I don't know yet.
No, because they're beating teams. I mean, they have a great record.
Yeah, they're beating everybody.
But you want that conference title, which all teams that strive and up at the top, you don't want that one blemish mark, which is the loss to Bondwell. So can they get them the second time? We'll have to see. But they do get a lot of offensive support from those two girls. They're both each almost average about 20 points a game. Well,
got about 30 seconds to go. Anything final on your mind?
I'm just excited, as I've mentioned multiple times already on the show, that you get to see how some of these conference races start to play out. You get into a hunt, and I think this is the fun of it. We got to get this game because of this. We got to get this. You're starting to analyze things and see how things can play out and give you that leverage or non-balanced point based on how you do it with the win or the loss. So I think it's looking forward just through this weekend into next Tuesday. There's some big games coming up.
Yep, we'll have plenty to talk about next week. Have a good week.
You too, Chad. Thanks.
That's Jeff Gress. I'm Chad Holmes. Thanks for joining us for the Big High School Sports Show on Bull Falls Radio 98.9 and 1230.
WXCO 1230 AM, W255DN Wausau, streaming at bullfallsradio.com.